Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a very different yet still fun video. I took a poll on Instagram to ask you guys about nostalgic movies, movies that you have forgotten about, that you used to watch all the time, and I just compiled this big list of nostalgic movies from like the 90s, early 2000s, so I could make this list for you because I was thinking of movies that I had seen when I was younger and maybe some that I had forgotten about, so I had to ask around to see because I love watching older movies. I always have movies on from like way before now. I'll watch movies now that are new like once, but then I always revert back to replaying old movies over and over because they just remind me of like my childhood, my early adulthood, and I just love watching those. So I wanted to make this list for you in case you want a list of movies to watch or you've forgotten about some. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, I'm wearing my Buffy the Vampire Slayer t-shirt. Very nostalgic because I love Buffy. I was late to the game in watching her show. I don't think I ever saw Buffy until I was like out of high school. So I was way behind because I am 27 and that would have been about 2011 or so, and it was out way before 2011, so I was way late to the Buffy game, but I loved the show. I have the shirt. Yeah. Okay, it's a long list. 25 movies. Here we go. Bring it on. This is like the ultimate cheerleader movie of all time. It obviously spun off a ton of like sequels and different kinds of movies, but the original Bring It On, Kirsten Dunst, Gabrielle Union, Elijah Dushku. This movie is like one of my all-time favorites. I just watched it the other day and I think it's on Amazon Prime right now. So if you're seeing this video and it's like real time, I just posted it, go check Amazon Prime. It's still on there for free. Next movie, Walk to Remember, the ultimate Nicholas Sparks movie. Shane West, who is like my huge crush growing up. The name Landon, all of my generational people that are around my age have sons named Landon because of this movie. I feel like the name Landon just spun from that movie. Honestly, everyone that has a son named this that I've asked about it all point back to Shane West's character. Of course, Mandy Moore too. Love her so much. Really good movie. Number 3, Drive Me Crazy. Really awesome movie. Definitely very nostalgic. Just what they were wearing. I just watched this a couple of weeks ago. Melissa Joan Hart, just the way that she was styled for this movie just was very 90s. It just kind of makes me miss that fashion. Like the crop tops. Not that I personally could wear one, but just the hairstyles. This movie is a fun one to go back and watch because you can definitely see the stark contrast of like fashion from now and back then. The next one's kind of just like a group, and it's any Mary-Kate and Ashley movie. This made the list because Hulu just released three Mary-Kate and Ashley movies, and seriously, that just says my childhood. I grew up to Mary-Kate and Ashley, and I loved their movies. I've probably seen every one of them like 3 or 4 times, especially when they were a little bit older. One of my favorites is Our Lips Are Sealed when they filmed in Australia. I love that movie. I loved Billboard Dad, which is actually on Hulu right now. All their movies just very nostalgic, remind me of growing up in the childhood, and on the weekends I would just binge watch their movies. So highly recommend you check some of those out because they just dropped to Hulu. This next movie was the top movie when I asked you guys for nostalgic movies. You all said this movie, and it's 10 Things I Hate About You. And yes, I love this movie. Julia Stiles, Larissa Olenek, I think is how you pronounce her name. Heath Ledger, obviously the great late Heath Ledger. This is where I first fell in love with him. He is just so attractive in this movie. He has such that, like, I think it's an Australian accent. I love it. Maybe it's like a New Zealand accent. I know there's a difference and I'm not quite sure, but I loved him as an actor. That's where he first was put on the map for me specifically, and I just love this movie. It also has Joseph Gordon-Levitt in it, and he just looks like a baby when you watch this movie. So highly recommend you guys go back and check this one out. I'm sure most of you have seen it, but this one, especially the soundtrack of this movie, I love the music in the movie and the soundtrack. It's just such a good soundtrack to drive around to clean your house to, just anything. The next one and the next 2 are both Adam Sandler movies, but my all-time favorite favorite Adam Sandler movie is The Wedding Singer. I was just watching this the other day when I filmed my last cleaning video. You can see it on my TV, and I love this movie. I love the humor of it. It has Drew Barrymore opposite Adam Sandler, and I love the premise of the movie and the way that the characters are. It's just my favorite Adam Sandler movie of all time. The next one is Billy Madison, also an Adam Sandler film. This movie to me is so unrealistic, but you almost believe it because Adam Sandler can convince you of literally anything. I highly recommend you go back and watch this one as well if you're interested in watching nostalgic movies. I can just think of so many lines from this movie that I absolutely love, so highly recommend it. The next one is A Cinderella Story with Hilary Duff and Chad Michael Murray. Hilary Duff is my all-time favorite Disney starlet ever. To me, she's the only one that's come out of being raised in Hollywood and still has a really, really good head on her shoulders. I still follow her on Instagram. I watch her new show, well, not new show, it's been going for a while, Younger. And I just absolutely love her. I love her as an actress. I love her as a musician. I really, really, really love her music. The first album I ever owned by anyone was Hilary Duff's album Metamorphosis, and that just takes me back. I just watched a documentary about her, and I had to add this movie to the list because this is just the ultimate Hilary Duff movie, A Cinderella Story. The next one is kind of the opposite little frenemy of Hilary Duff, and it's Lindsay Lohan's Freaky Friday. Also opposite Jamie Lee Curtis, where they switch bodies. I really, really, really enjoyed this movie. It's also on Amazon Prime for free right now. I've watched it a few times because it's one of the shows that my daughter can actually watch that's appropriate, because a lot of these have humor that's not quite appropriate for a young one. But Freaky Friday, I absolutely love, love, love this movie. I love the humor in it. And also has Chad Michael Murray in it as well. I almost forgot to say that. And the next movie is one of my, I think, top 5 movies of all time favorites. It is Sweet Home Alabama. Not only am I from Alabama, which obviously I love my home state, but I really, really love this movie with Reese Witherspoon, Patrick Dempsey, Josh Lucas. And I all around love this movie because to me it wasn't as predictable as other people found it to be. I love the storyline. I love the southern accents, obviously. I love the history of this movie, and all around I just love the feel-good feeling of this movie. And I love Reese Witherspoon as well. So definitely one to add to your list if you're kind of wanting to go back and watch nostalgic movies. You've got to rewatch this one. The next one is another Lindsay Lohan, very classic movie, and that is The Parent Trap. I love this movie. It's just kind of one of those movies that you smile the entire time. You've seen it probably 1,000 times yourself. I know I've seen it 1,000 times. Love this movie. Very appropriate for your kids to watch. So it's not one of those you have to be careful of. So I really want to introduce my children to movies that I loved growing up, so hopefully they will enjoy them as well. So definitely The Parent Trap. The next one is Clueless. This movie is just kind of like, I don't know. I don't really like the storyline. It's just not really that serious of a movie to me. It's not believable whatsoever, but for some reason I still overall like this movie, and it has the late Brittany Murphy in it, Alicia Silverstone. It also has Paul Rudd in it, and I feel like Paul Rudd has not aged ever. He still looks the exact same as he did in this movie, and this movie is quite old. But this is just one to watch that's just kind of fun to watch. You don't have to think about it. You can just really enjoy it. The next movie is one of my all-time favorites. Like, we're talking definitely top 5. And that is the movie Ever After with Drew Barrymore. It is very Cinderella type of story. Basically, it is a Cinderella type of movie. But it's just done so different. I am obsessed with every character in this movie. The scenery is absolutely beautiful. I have no clue where it was filmed, but it's absolutely beautiful. Drew Barrymore just is Cinderella to me. The way she was in the movie, just not even her appearance, just her character in general, how she was kind and she was loving, and she was just the ultimate Cinderella to me, and she always will be. Highly recommend you go back and watch this movie. I haven't seen it in a really long time until someone wrote it down on my Instagram post about nostalgic movies and all the feels when I watched this movie. I remember watching this all the time growing up, and my love has just not changed. The next movie is She's the Man with Amanda Bynes and a very young Channing Tatum in this movie. I love this movie. It's so fun to watch. I think it was one of Amanda Bynes' last movies before she kind of just had some personal issues and kind of stepped down from Hollywood. And I own this movie via Amazon. I watch it every now and then. I think it's so funny. I really enjoy this movie every now and then. The premise behind it, again, not very believable, as is the theme with a lot of these movies, but it's just a really fun one to go back and watch. The next one is a lot older than most of these on my list, but I had to include it. I grew up watching this movie, and it is the movie Can't Buy Me Love with a very young Patrick Dempsey in it. Basically, he pays a girl to act like she likes him because she's popular and he is not, and basically it changes his whole like image, and I love this movie. And they did remake it with Nick Cannon and I think Christina Milian. I did not like the remake whatsoever. I don't know what it was about it. I really like the original. I think it was filmed in the late 80s. So definitely very nostalgic for me, even though I wasn't born yet when it was made. I just grew up watching this and I love this movie. The next one is another Amanda Bynes all-time favorite movie, and it is What a Girl Wants. This has a really good soundtrack as well. A lot of the music is performed by Oliver James, who plays her love interest in the movie, and he's just such a cute little British boy, and he has such a good singing voice. Like I said, I love the music. Kelly Preston plays her mom, Colin Firth plays her dad, and basically she goes to England to meet her birth father, who is like a lord, so he's one of the royals, and she tries to kind of fit in with them, and it's such a good movie. If you've never seen this one, you are highly missing out. This is one of the ones that I actually found to be pretty believable, even though the storyline kind of had some plot holes in it. It's just one that I grew up watching and I absolutely love and recommend you go back and watch it if you have time. This is just one of the ones on here that I was like, duh, I loved this movie. Switching gears, the next movie is nothing like the rest of these, but it's a witchcraft type movie, but it is The Craft. I love this movie. It has Fairuza Balk in it, Neve Campbell. It has Robin Tooney, I believe is the girl's name, Skeet Ulrich, who is now on Riverdale. This is a really good movie. Not believable again, but like looking back now when I was watching it, I was like totally believable in it. I loved this movie. Very witchcraft, so if you don't want your kids to kind of be exposed to that, just be careful watching this one if you've never seen it. I'm sure most of you guys have seen like all of these movies, so this is just a refresher for all of you. But The Craft right now is also on Amazon Prime. Just watched it, loved it, never gets old to me. And I hear they're actually remaking it, but instead of it being an actual remake of the movie, they are doing either a sequel or a prequel. I'm not sure which one it is, but that's supposed to be coming out soon and I am very excited. The next movie, Drew Barrymore again, Never Been Kissed. If you've never seen this one only came up once in the poll or the question that I had on Instagram. I was very surprised because I loved this movie growing up. Drew Barrymore is a reporter. She goes undercover back into high school. The problem is that in high school she was kind of a loser, and even though she's 25 going back in for a story, she's still kind of a loser. She falls in love with one of the staff members, and it's just altogether a really good movie. I found this movie to be very believable. I love the lesson it taught. Every person in this movie, Sam Vartan, who is the teacher she falls in love with, I really like him as an actor as well. So if you've never seen this one, I highly recommend it. I have a few friends who said they've never seen this movie. Very shocking. It is also on Amazon Prime right now, so make sure you watch that one. Next one is Coyote Ugly with Piper Perabo in it. I really love this movie. It's just one of those feel-good movies. Again, great soundtrack to this movie. It's just a very like, again, nostalgic movie, which is why it's on this list. The next movie is Legally Blonde. Reese Witherspoon, love her, where she goes to law school to get back with her ex-boyfriend. And I adore this movie. Again, not very believable, but one of the movies that I watch over and over again. I like the little humor in this movie, and I love her character of Elle Woods. She's just a very determined person, and you can actually learn a lot from her character, so this is one of the ones that will never ever get old to me. The next one, Save the Last Dance. This is one of my just tried and true. I've watched this probably over 500 times. Love the soundtrack to this movie. I love the message this movie sends. It is such a beautiful love story, and I just love it. I absolutely love that movie. 13 Going on 30. Next movie, Jennifer Garner, where she is 30 and ends up going back, or she's 13 and ends up going traveling forward in time to when she's 30. I love this movie, even though the storyline again is impossible. I just fell in love with Jennifer Garner watching this movie, and she's become one of my favorite actresses of all time. She also plays in this movie with Mark Ruffalo, I think is his name. He's such a good actor as well. They had really good chemistry on stage, but they just had the I think it was the anniversary of this movie, like maybe 15 years ago or so, which seems crazy to me, but definitely one to add to your list to watch again. 3 more left and I'm done. Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion. Oh, this movie is it's so silly. It's not like a very serious movie, but always one to go back and watch. It's so fun to watch. And the last 2, Mrs. Doubtfire, such a good movie, so nostalgic. And then the very last one is the movie Scream and the entire Scream series. I watch these every now and then because I love the series. It's not scary to me. I'm not like afraid or anything. Very kind of predictable horror type film from back then. I just love the Scream series in general. I love Neve Campbell. I like the storyline kind of like throughout. It has actually like a really good storyline, and they have really good writers that have wrote for this. There are a ton of celebrities. You go back and watch it and you see how many celebrities made cameos in all these Scream movies, and I just love going back and watching them. Again, brings back great memories, very nostalgic. So that's going to be all for this video. That was definitely a mouthful. I wanted to get this film for you guys and share some of those. If a movie that you love is not on the list, please comment it down below. I could only include movies that I actually have seen myself, so I didn't just go recommending a bunch of movies that I never personally have seen. So comment your favorites down below, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!